Hi, it's Mandy here again. I'm going to show you another couple of tricks for sewing on machine binding. Now, a lot of people say do not machine stitch your binding down, but as we got close to Christmas, a lot of people were stuck with quilts that they had to get finished fairly quickly. So here's some great ideas for machine stitching down your binding. So as you can see, this is just a sample that I've got, but I've got the Wonder clips holding my binding in place. And I have a special foot I'm going to show you in a minute that I use to stitch down binding. And if you watch, as I stitch this down, I'm going to try and hold this, I'm doing a one-hander here, but as I try to stitch this down, you can see that that foot runs nicely along the edge of that binding. And of course the Wonder clips hold it in place really nicely as well. But that foot, as you're flying along, you can actually go quite quickly. You can see that it runs alongside the edge of the binding. And of course, one-handed doesn't help. But this works out really nicely for stitching down your binding. And I've actually stitched down the other side of this binding as well. And if you flip it over, you can see where I've stitched it, machine stitched it, and how nice and straight it is. But on the back, it doesn't show. And the reason it doesn't show on the back, if you get really close, you can see it barely. The reason it doesn't show is because I'm using something called monofilament thread in my bobbin. So it doesn't matter what color your backing is. If you put this in the bobbin, your stitching, when you stitch on the front side here, is not going to show on the back side over here, because it's clear. Finally, I'm going to just take this foot off and show you what it actually looks like. This foot is for a Bernina, but you can get them similar feet for other machines. You can see that it's actually higher on one side than the other. And if you watched, this high side sat on, you know, 2 layers of binding and the quilt front and back and the batting, and this one just sat on the front, back, and the batting. So as it went along, this nice groove in this foot kept it nice and straight, so I get a beautiful finished edge. And let me show you, I'm going to walk over to some of my quilts over here, and you can see how nicely the binding actually comes out. It stitches really beautifully, and if you look at the back, when I flip it over here, you can't hardly see where it is stitched down. So this is a really great way to speed up your binding process. Here's another quilt here where I did it. It's stitched down by machine, and if you look at the back of the quilt, you can't actually see any thread where it's stitched down. So this is just some good options for you if you're kind of in a hurry, or you know, you've got a lot of quilts to bind. This is a great option to use a foot like that and use monofilament in your bobbin. And also the other part of that is use a glove. It's really easy for you to manipulate the quilt as you're trying to sew this down. Anyway, just some tips for you. Bye for now.